Ryan, AF40, Alpha Foxtrot 4 Oscar. And Ryan is going to do a presentation on operating, demystifying split operations when you hear split IHF. So Ryan, take it away.
All right, good evening everyone, and also Wednesday night net control, so hopefully maybe the voice sounds familiar. So yeah, we're going to talk about is, all right, so we're talking about split operations and what those are, what we're going to talk about there, and then we're not going to go through every single slide in the manual from all the different radios, but we'll have this presentation available on either on the website or wherever we do for folks to have as a reference later on. Because we have probably a good dozen radios, more popular, Gators, Kenwoods, Icoms, those kind of things. So what to look for there. So what is split? It's basically when your station is transmitting on one frequency or a VFO. It can be a single VFO, but you have a different frequency from which your receiver is listening. So usually it's a DX station or special event that you'll be listening again on, I don't know, 20 meters, usually about 5 kilohertz away from, or well, I'm sorry, microhertz. But anyway, you'll be listening to a different frequency and transmitting on a different one, so it's kind of like a full duplex, but this is not like on the 2 meters kind of thing. So we'll talk about that. Here's a good example, kind of a visual. I'll kind of go through some of the text part of this. But mainly the visual, you can kind of see where there's a country, in this case, Mauritius. Am I saying that right? Mauritius. Thank you. You know, have a DX station that you're trying to work there, possibly, or a DX expedition, and there's going to be a big pileup anticipated. They can be on a certain transmitting frequency, and you can be listening to that. But then when you transmit, they are not listening on that same frequency that they're transmitting from. Right, they're listening on a different one. That's what the different arrows and those kind of things are. So we do this again, so you can kind of keep the pileups manageable. Because if you've ever been like on POTA, you have a lot of people. Sometimes it feels like you're not getting through it all, right? So this way it can be kind of managed a lot better. But the trick of sorts is everyone has to be playing along and on the same sheet of music between the different transmit and receive, where you get people that are transmitting on the wrong thing and then it kind of gets messy. So another scenario is on 40 meters between the ITU regions, what we're allowed to transmit on over here in the States versus like in Europe. So that's another scenario where we can transmit where they can listen, but they can transmit back to us where we can listen, but we can't, you know, transmit. So hopefully that makes sense. All right, so doing this responsibly. So what are some ways to help, you know, do this correctly? And one of the first things is when you're, let's say it's a DXpedition, go look up the information real quick online. Is find them on the spots, on the cluster feeds. You can also look up a lot of times they'll have their own websites out there or something about that particular call sign for that DXpedition, like Bouvet Island or something like that. See where they're, especially in the DX cluster spots, usually they'll say in there that working up 5, working up 10, that's what you want to set your different receive frequency from your transmit frequency. They're going to be up 5, so you're going to go up 5 or 10 megahertz. And those kind of things. So, what you want to make sure you can understand. That's what a lot of this presentation will also be about. Is know how your radio works. They all work a little differently. How you set them all up, but then making sure what to look for, so that you're kind of scanning when you're sitting there. Because sometimes it can be still kind of long to get through the pileup. Am I in split? Because sometimes software maybe hits your computer and changes. You know, your settings all of a sudden. I had that on mine one time. My HRD fired up, and all of a sudden it flipped my VFOs around, like active and stuff. So yeah, go ahead.
Ryan, so if you're running in split, you can only hear what the distant station is transmitting, but you cannot hear on the channel that you're going to be transmitting on.
Correct. No.
So how do you
Depends
know
on
you're
the
not gonna
radio.
jump
No,
on top of
depends-
somebody?
Well, you're not gonna hear when you're transmitting anyway, regardless of, right?
Yeah, but I'm gonna make sure I'm not gonna jump on top of somebody that's already transmitting.
Well, you're gonna transmit the first time, and it's gonna be in a pileup anyway.
Okay.
And if they pick you out, you're gonna be hearing them call you back. Then when you transmit, your radio flips back over again, so it goes in kind of a
always
loop.
transmit on that.
But hopefully, when they call that, you hear your call sign, you transmit, everybody else shuts up. That's the goal. Doesn't always happen because people don't listen, but hopefully, if that's the case, then you know you can get back on the PTT and then make your transmission and then get your contact. Now, if you let go and then it's like what, and then call again and see if that's who they were trying to get a hold of, and see if you can do that.
Okay.
Ryan, quick question for you. Is the split a setting that you could set your radio for?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, you'll see in just a moment. Yep.
All right.
I didn't know. Oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead, Bob.
If your receiver has two receivers built in, you can listen to both. Are you gonna cover that? Then I will,
I have a slide at the very end.
Okay.
For folks that have that scenario, and because I can show you what kind
Yeah,
of
I
things.
didn't wanna-
I think your flexes,
The club radios do it also.
they're dual.
Yeah, you can listen on both frequencies, you can transmit on
You
both
just
frequencies.
change your gains.
So what ends up happening is that the DX station is transmitting, and he'll tell you he's listening, like you said, 5 to 10 KC up. So now you take VFOB, you're listening, and what you can also do is that if you're hearing who he's working, his station call is working, you can go with VFOB and you can see if you can
That's-
hear that guy.
Well, that's what I got at the end.
Right.
I'll have a visual that talks to that.
So, but anyway, you can listen to both frequencies at the same time,
with the right radio.
with the right radio. Well, with the ones we have in here, you can.
All right, so, and something you said there, well, Rich, thank you, is to this point is listen, listen, listen. A lot of the times, the DX Expedition, when they call QRZ, they'll say up 5, or they'll say usually what they're working. So just listening to that alone will tell you where you need to go and be, or up 10, or whatever the case is. Another thing to keep in mind is the DX Code of Conduct. Make sure you're always following that. I
What's that?
think I have a.
Just do a search on DX Code of Contact that talks about listen, listen, listen.
I had a slide in here, apologies. Maybe I still do, I don't see the next one. But it is online, you can easily Google that. There's about 10 or 12
Yeah.
bullets, I think. So, just, just being a good operator, citizen. And so the other thing is when you're listening, you'll hear other people who are not listening and don't know what either their rig changed on them or they don't know what they're doing necessarily. Just be an honest mistake. And they're transmitting where you're trying to listen. So the DX station's not even going to hear them, and they're talking on top of what everybody's trying to hear their call sign come back. So, but you'll have people that'll be yelling, "Up, he's working up," and this stuff, which just adds more confusion, more chaos and traffic over the top of everything going on. Just kind of hang back, because one, there's always going to be these people anyway, so don't add more to that chaos, and such is the point. So,
I got a question.
yes, go ahead. Sorry.
How do you know, what is someone set about in deciding he's gonna go be at a certain frequency and he's gonna be about a certain frequency up offset? How does he arbitrarily decide that? And, when he starts, I just don't.
A lot of times, the expeditions, they'll post information well ahead of time, at least kind of their band plan of where they expect to be. That may change depending on conditions and such, but they're usually going to be 15 meters, we're going to be in this area for sideband, for CW, for digital if they're doing it. So they'll have a band plan usually laid out that can give you at least a start of what to expect. Now, it can change. Again, maybe they find a place to sit on and up 5 is in the middle of some other bunch of traffic. It's not going to be very conducive, right? So, but maybe they listen up 10 or something else. They'll have to just change that at the time. But again, that's why listening and or looking online for current information will help you figure that out.
Okay, thank you.
Just make sure when you're calling in, give your call sign, your full call sign. Don't try to do the little cheat game where you just kind of give a little into your call sign, and if you hear them call those 2 or 3 letters back and your suffix only, no, just give your full call sign. If it's too long, you can, as you seek and upgrade and change that. If it's too many letters to get out every time, then that's the way to go. All right, so if the DX doesn't seem to come back to anybody, wait a few seconds and see it, just kind of like let your clock reset and then kind of go back into the loop and the timing of things as far as the trying to get them back or hearing where they are. Oh, and the biggest thing too is, I think I did this once before, I'll be honest. I got excited about a station I was kind of wanting to get. I think it was on 40, and I was like, oh yeah. I got it and moved on and nobody said anything. And then I noticed, whoops, that was in the general band and they were in the extra band and I was the general at the time, blah, blah, blah. So just make sure you're paying attention to where the listening and transmitting. That's another thing, sometimes they can listen in the extra portion and the transmit for the working up, coming back, could be in the general part. They might do that. I don't know if that's normal, but that's one way to do it. So, with that, we have, again, we're not going to go through every single one of these slides, but these are all the different radios that we have, like screenshots or pictures of the radio itself, what to look for, and those kind of things. So, again, this presentation we'll have on the website and/or Groups.io or however we want to share that, so you can reference that later at a later time.
Data website.
Website, okay. So first one, just 7300, fairly common radio. The main thing is on this one, there is a actual split button or a hardware button for that. That's, you can put your rig into split mode. Again, the key for all of these radios is knowing what's on either on the screen or whatever, possibly a button that you hit for split has a little light to it. A lot of the Yaesus have, sometimes they'll have a light next to split, so you know you're in split right away, or you see it on the screen. But again, when you're sitting there waiting for the pilot, trying to get through, and it can take a while, just make sure that you're in split mode so that when you transmit, if you're not in split mode, you're probably going to transmit and then you're going to hear all those people come back and yell at you, kind of thing. So just it happens, but try to minimize it. 7610, again, there's a light in the middle of the screen there, that little orange one, that's where you want to see, again, just like a 7300, it's got a split indicator. ICOM 7000, I didn't highlight it, but at the very top, in orange, pinkish, whatever color next to the clock or the time, it's SPL, that's split for these kind of radios, and then the SPL down below is just saying that that F1 button in that particular menu setup is for operating split, and how you can set your frequencies, and you'll see, actually, okay, so I'm sorry, there should be a secondary frequency, like a secondary VFO, that you'll see when it's in split mode, but, oh, it is below, I'm sorry. Thank you. Yeah, so you'll see what your setup is as far as where you're listening and where you're transmitting. One more here is 705. Sorry for this weird picture on the right. I'm not sure how I did that, but anyway, the thing here is being a little bit smaller radio. There's not an actual button that you just hit, but it will show you split on the screen. But you go into a function menu, and that's how you can get that turned on or off. K3, that has a button. You'll see on all the Elecraft radios, any button that has the white text on the button itself is just a short tap. If it says something in yellow, it's going to be a long press for that button. So you just press and hold. And you can see that this says split in yellow. And you'll have the two VFOs, and then there's also a split, or it's an SPLT right above between the two VFOs. I didn't circle that one.
There's also a light to the left of the far left, Delta F.
On the,
Above
Right in the middle of the
phones.
screen, just,
Above phones.
oh, okay, yes. Well, you got one of these?
Yep.
I know.
No, his eyesight's really that good.
Yeah, right. All right, so then K4, very similar. And then in the middle, it'll say split on or split off. So, it'll just tell you straight up in the middle of the screen there, kind of like a 7610 as far as location there. But, that's how you can turn that on and off. Again, it's the yellow text, so it's a long press on that one. Then, getting into some Yaesus. This is probably one of the older ones we got in here, but still quite a popular radio. So for this one here, it's a little bit more of, and this is not a purpose cheap shot, but this is definitely a menu kind of thing you got to get into to go there. But the function key on the left, and then if you were to read the entire instructions, there'll be an SPL function that you can pull up and go into split, and then you can configure the two transmit and receive frequencies. So it's fairly straightforward. It's not hard. It's just a little different. And when this is in split mode, the upper left corner of the display will say SPL. So the 101D and or MP, kind of the same as far as what we're talking about here. I do not believe that they have a split indicator on the display screen. You will see usually on the newer Yaesus, one will have a TX in like green and then RX in orange next to the different VFOs or frequencies. And that's what you would key off of to see how that's configured. And wherever there's a split button on the right-hand side by the knob, I don't know if it's in this particular picture. Oh, it's kind of in the diagram down to the left. There is a split key that'll be on with a light next to it. So that's where you would see, hey, am I still in split or did something change? DX10, very similar. You can see more in this picture of the RX and TX kind of thing. The 18, this is the 17 meter up top, and then the small orange frequency down below for, well, that's probably the transmit actually. And then there'll be a button that says split, and you'll have a light when it's on and a light off when it's not in split mode. 710, it's just this kind of a smaller DX10. Fairly similar, just a smaller screen, but again, there's a button over again on the right for when your split's turned on. And you'll see the different RX, TX indicators next to the different VFO frequencies in the screen. But it doesn't necessarily say split, it's just the way they do it. And then the 991A, same thing. That one has a split on the screen, so they kind of went that route with it, if you will. So, but there is a split button, again, another hardware button for that. But it's a good way to keep it in touch and know what's going on. Any 480s in the house? Nice, all right. So, again, very similar. There's a split indicator up there on the right, and the two different frequencies, which going out and transmitting and which ones you receive. But in the manual it tells you how to go about setting all that up. But that's where you would notice that if you're running split operation there. 590 SG, another pretty popular one. I didn't look, but if there's any 570s, and is there 580? 570 though.
I got 570, works the same
I
way.
was gonna say, it's probably quite similar to this.
Yeah.
So, but again, it's split, notice it's on there, the two different VFOs and frequencies, and your split indicator, so.
I used to buy them.
Oh, here we go, Lou.
Yeah.
Actually, there's probably a few of you, I'm sure, here that flexes, so yeah. With the 6000 series, so the 63s and up, I believe, run, at least that's what this, the SDR software looks like. I did look into that, the previous 3000s and 5000s run a little bit different looking software, I think. So, but as far as the slices, which for non-flex folks, slices basically an VFO for this particular topic. So anyway, you got a left and a right VFO, and you can see the transmit is on the right here on the B. So that's where you're going to be talking as soon as you hit the transmit, but you're listening mainly on the A VFO on the left for your DX traffic.
That applies to the 8000 series as well. So.
Yeah, yeah. 6,000, I need to do 6,000 plus.
Yeah.
All right. So we're not gonna go too much into, we're not really gonna go into like a specific, this is just for an example, but your rig control and logging software can do a lot of integration and controlling things. The DX Lab Commander application here, there's this screen won't show it very well, the pointer, but on the left center of that window is a split box. You just turn on split and it can take care of setting things up however you have it configured up there, in the windows for frequencies.
Can I add something? If you look above the VFO in the middle, look above where it says VFO BTX. There's buttons that say 1, I can't read the rest, 2, what's the
5
other
and
numbers?
10.
5 and 10, right?
Oh, the increments.
If you click the 5, it'll automatically put the radio up into up 5 mode, where it'll split the radio by 5 kilohertz, up 10. Typically up 5 and 10 is used for sideband, and 1 and 2 is used for CW. Go ahead.
When the QSO is logged, did you log the receive or the transmit frequency?
Depends on your logging software, that will log both.
Yeah,
Depends
but
on-
when you upload it to like Log of the World, which,
They don't care about frequency, they
They
just
don't
care about
care.
band.
Yeah.
They don't pay attention to frequency.
One other thing on this, what we talked about a little bit earlier today was, and I kind of touched on this at the beginning of the presentation, is with the control software, like I had where on my 7610 and the HRD or Ham Radio Deluxe software comes up, makes its connection. I just happen to be using kind of, I guess, backwards of the A and B VFOs, whatever. The software comes up and flipped everything back on me. I didn't kind of realize that at first. So just be aware that, a lot of these control applications can do a lot of things for you. Just make sure you understand what's going on. And again, that's why I kind of was drilling the fact of on those different screens of all those different radios, or it's either a light or it's on the screen, and you're in split or you're not. So, you might have a question?
I have one other thing I wanted to
Yeah,
mention about
okay.
software. So DX Commander, that's just one example, as Ryan said. So your logging software, I'll say it this way. Most logging software, for example, if you have it connected to a DX cluster, the spots are coming across, and if they put up 5 in the comment, or QSX, and they give the actual frequency, QSX means the frequency he's transmitting on, most logging software is smart enough to go ahead and set if you double click on that, to set the radios up in that mode. So like DX Labs as an example, but others do it too. When the spot collector program sees up 5, it'll say, oh, up 5, it'll automatically put everything into that proper mode. So, and N1MM does a similar thing. So most contest software will do that as well if they see, although contest, that's not as common to do split operations. It's more for just DXing and other things.
No, on 40 meters, you run into, during the contest operation on 40 meters, and I believe you mentioned it already because of
ITU.
the ITU, so what you'll find is like a person transmitting on a frequency and in their CQ, they're saying listening, such frequency, and the frequency is where the DX station can operate. It can't operate where we're transmitting, so,
Yeah, so you gotta.
yeah, so they do, you're listening, transmitting on your frequency where we're allowed to transmit, and you're listening where they can transmit, they'll call you on their frequency that they can go.
That's it.
I get one question is, so in this, not get into the weeds, but on some of these apps where you said where it'll pick up the spots, is that something you would say, go ahead and do that automatically or turn that off?
Does it automatically?
Does it automatically?
Yeah.
Okay, so if you go and do
You click on
if you
it.
go do your 2 VFO trick that we'll talk about in a minute, will it try to go back and say, put you back into?
Well,
I was just trying to think of.
Okay, let me say, it's geared for A is receive, for A is you're listening to the DX frequency, B, you're transmitting.
Right.
If you want to swap, which is also possible depending on what you're doing, you can also flip it, but that's a deeper subject.
But if you're
It changes
receive VFO, if you're kind of chasing the rabbit, as I call it.
Oh, yes, it will reset it, yes.
Oh, okay,
It'll
that
reset.
would suck.
Yep.
Okay, well, just something to be aware of.
Yeah.
All right. Some quick tips on working through some pileups. Again, like we said, Lou, when you asked us, when you're calling out, you're not hearing it, right? But you're just calling out into a whole mix and mosh pit of people. Some things that you could possibly do is kind of tweak your compression a little bit. Again, this is all HF related, but maybe put your compression instead of on high, put it on medium. So the range is, it's gonna cut out the highs, the real high highs and the real lows, I think, correct? So your voice is just gonna kind of screech through a little bit. You can also, sometimes, some of the radios, you can transmit treble. You can turn up a little bit, turn your bass down a bit, that kind of thing. Maybe bump your mic gain just a bit, so it's a little hot. It may sound, it's not supposed to sound good, but it might help get you differentiated amongst this mosh pit of people. So just some things that people have tried. And then there's the always fun psychology, overthinking, when do you go, you know, and good luck. Sometimes you want to smash it right away, or maybe even right before they let go, just so you can maybe get heard first. That doesn't always work because it's become propagation and distance and all those kind of things, obviously. Seems like a lot of people lately, they'll wait. It all depends on how the person's operating on the DX side, it seems like. If they take early calls, you want to try to get in there quicker, but sometimes they just take the last thing they can hear, which drags the pileup out, and I hate that, but it is what it is.
That's why the pen adapters are nice.
Well, yeah, and that's what the last screen coming up here we'll talk about, but, so you just kind of play along, or you just, you know, as soon as you hear QRZ up 5 or whatever, and smash it and go, and then listen for, hopefully, your call to come back. That's the simplest way. After 20 minutes of doing that, sometimes you want to play some mental games with yourself and overanalyze, and that way, if I go sooner or I go, you know.
Just place the order for the amplifier after 20 minutes.
The RF gain just went up a bit, yeah.
The expression is all knobs right.
So, just some thoughts there. And then the last slide here, this may not, you know, something you don't have to worry about putting a lot of brain cells into this kind of thing, but if you're kind of like gaming it and you want to have some fun of sorts, if you do have something where you have 2 VFOs in the display and the waterfall, like you said, you can have, your receive is on the left, and you're listening, that doesn't ever move, right? On the right side, the VFO-B, where you have the transmit, up top you see the little red transmit. But using the waterfall, you know, they're gonna be up 5, but they're always going up and down within this 5, 10, whatever range on their side. The people that are out there listening and working, that you're trying to work. So you can sit there on the 5 up and just hope you get through the pileup. But you can play some games where if you got dual VFOs again, where you can dual independent receive, you can listen to what they're calling out and then see if you can hear, like Rich was saying, you can hear the guy in which pileup. Now, like say, like those 3 different streams of traffic on the right side and this down below in that yellow square, if you try to get your VFO on top of them quick enough with your dial, if you can start to hear both sides of the QSO, you know where they're at. Now, they may move on after that person, but there's a good chance they'll stay there for 1 or 2 more QSOs. So then you can go quicker, and then you're not in, but you know, maybe you're 8 up, maybe you're 12 up or something. Wherever they are, but they're always moving.
Why? Why would they move the receive?
Well, because
they can
otherwise
find
you'd have a
somebody they
whole lot
can
of
hear.
people on one frequency transmitting, so it splits it up. When you got,
Makes it
I see
easier.
that on CW.
You can't hear them, you can't work them.
They're sort of spread out in CW, so it's like.
And also what you're doing is that, you know, when you're trying to bust through this pileup, by listening to where the other guys are transmitting, you could probably find like a little spot where it's clear. So you're not,
no, yeah.
you know, you're not transmitting on a frequency where a guy's running 10K.
Yeah, but
He's never gonna hear you.
Yeah.
So you try to find, like, this guy's here, I got a little clear spot, I'm gonna get,
You need to be looking at his waterfall too, trying to find.
Yeah, he's got if he doesn't have a waterfall, then he's got a 3 kilohertz window and that's it.
I see the look on Lou's face. So when he says up 5, can I go here for a
Okay,
second?
yeah.
When he says up 5, he doesn't mean I'm only listening 5 up. What he means is he's listening 5. Sometimes they will say listening up 5 to 10. Sometimes they'll say listening up 5 to 20. But even if they don't say that, if they say listening up 5, most likely they're listening up 5 to 10. So what you do is you see where they are, and there's two ways to do it. You either have sometimes they will go up and then walk back down and just keep going that way. Sometimes they will go up and then go all the way back to 5, all right, and walk back up again and just keep doing it that way. If you can figure out the pattern, you can be in a clear spot, and then they simply stumble upon you giving your next
So that's
call.
what you mean by chasing the rabbit.
So it's
Yeah, it's with the VFO, I'm over here listening, I'm listening to both sides, but I'm listening to where, if I can find like in mine, I got a left and right speaker window, if either a headset or external speaker. If I can hear the QSO going back and forth, and it's gonna be quick, if I can find that, then I'll tell where they're at, and then be ready with the PTT to jump in potentially. Now, again, they may move on right after that one before you, and then you gotta kind of repeat this process. But it's just something to kind of keep you entertained while you're working through.
If you,
pilot.
if you can,
Listen.
if you can
Listen,
hear,
listen, listen.
if you can hear what's going on the transmit side, the people, the pileup is there, you can either time yourself that as soon as the guy is done, you throw your
Yeah,
call
yeah,
in,
that's what I was
saying.
or
That's
you
what I was
can find,
thinking.
find a clear spot right near him. But the advantage is that you're hearing the guy that he's talking to. So he's gonna call, W2XX, right? And you're hearing W2XX. So you know when the contact is starting and ending, and either you can click up just a little bit on the frequency,
Yeah.
or as soon as he finishes, you can
Right.
tailgate him, just throw like your last two letters of your call in.
No, we don't do that.
Well,
Don't do that, don't do that.
okay, and he'll pick up, MF, or, station N, so it's a matter of timing and placing yourself somewhere where he is going to be.
Please give your whole call. Don't
And that's,
do
and that's
too
the,
much.
advan-
No,
that's the advantage of having two,
My
you know,
PTT was
two,
good.
two radios, or two VFOs, an A and a B,
And
and
a
the
pen
ability to
adapter.
hear and transmit.
What radio is that from, Ryan?
That's 7610.
7610, how about that? Go ahead.
Okay, quick question. So you're saying that about the PTT, would it be quicker to have your radio set to Vox mode?
No,
Say?
I personally, I'm kind of newish to a lot of this, but I don't ever plan on running that. I got dogs barking and everything in the house.
Okay, I was
Just push the top.
curious.
Yeah, no, just be ready.
Vox is for
Trigger.
farmers on 160 actually.
It's good to know.
It's for the rag chew on 80 meters.
Vox.
If you really want to understand the process, you need to be on the DX side and have 25 people calling you at the same time,
Or 200 people. call
or
you
whatever,
out.
however many it is. You're just trying to listen to one call that you can understand. Everybody is on top of everybody, and everybody is just making noise. As soon as you can tune up and you find the one guy you can understand, that's typically who you go back to.
Yeah.
Because it's just a cacophony of noise. So you're just looking for one guy in 10 or 15 KCs that you can understand, whether he's the biggest signal there or whether he found the quiet spot. That's the guy, that you're gonna talk to as the station in question.
So that's it for this. Any other? Oh, you're good. Anybody else have any questions? Go ahead.
I had a comment about that, if you ever wanna experience what it's like to be on the DX
Yeah, be a
end
POTA.
and not have to travel very far, find a park that hasn't been activated in a long time and go there. That's,
Might
Yeah.
actually try to go honeymoon this
Although I've
weekend.
never heard,
Oh,
It's partially open, reopened.
I'm on board.
I'll let you know.
I've never heard a POTO operation do split though, so POTO,
But Paul, I thought where you were gonna go with that was,
I don't hear
if you
them.
wanna
I don't think
experience
I've ever
what
heard.
a pileup is like.
I have heard European.
have you? Okay,
Really?
all right, maybe, all right.
In Coda?
Yeah.
But if you wanna experience just a pileup and how to,
Yeah.
what you're gonna do to
What
manage
it's
or
like to be on the other end of the
what you're
pile.
hearing and how you're processing it, cause if
Oh,
it's
yeah.
different, then yeah, going out and doing that, perfect.
All right, thank you, Ryan.
Yeah.
Any other questions?